Again, it's about connecting with the people that matter to you, being intentional about making plans, seeing your friends, seeing friends that light you up, that help you stay grounded in more, compassionate, kind narratives and ways of thinking. I have some amazing friends that help me stay grounded and sort of help me see the big picture more realistically. I think sometimes as individuals, we are our worst critics. Our perspective on things is a bit blurred. And sometimes we need people who love us to show us more clearly that the picture. Hi, guys. I am doing another solo episode today, and I'm not sure these will ever get easy for me. And I say that because I guess it's telling because I am a therapist. And as a therapist, we do talk, but we're listeners. We're holding space for someone else. So I think I've always struggled with kind of owning the spotlight and having the spotlight and being the one talking and sharing. It's kind of funny because we have been talking about celebration burnout, and the idea being that we celebrate a lot of people for a lot of other things. And for me, I experienced that, but also I was thinking about that in sort of the aligned with the spotlight thing is the first thing I celebrated for myself was 40 years old, my baby shower. And as an identical twin, I share a birthday, you share a lot of things, but I was always going to everybody else's stuff. And when it was a celebration for me, it was beautiful. I was so grateful, but it was really uncomfortable. So that's a little bit of a tangent about just doing this solo episode, kind of my voice being center stage. But I have something really important I want to talk about today, something that I am personally struggling with and working to improve on every day. And that's this idea of putting so much pressure on things. And I think for me personally and professionally as a therapist, I see the impact of the pressure that we put on ourselves. And a lot of what we talk about on here is that societal pressure, that external pressure, that internal pressure, that word should. And I joke about this all the time, but if any of my former or current clients are listening, the word should puts so much pressure on ourselves. It implies that we're not doing something right, that we're not doing enough of something, that what we're doing currently is not good enough, right? The idea of I should be in a relationship or I should be at this place in my career at this point. The word should put so much pressure and judgment on where we currently are and where we currently are in our life and on our journey. And in my work as a therapist, I always encourage people to bring awareness to the word should and how much they're using it throughout the day. And when I prompt my clients to do this, they come back sort of in shock, saying, I use the word should all of the time. This pressure that we put on ourselves, and currently where I'm struggling or where I'm working, right? A reframe there. What I'm working on is taking the pressure off the timeline of a second baby. And it's challenging. I'm not here to say that that's easy at all. I want to humanize and normalize that I'm struggling with this as well. And the way I'm trying to do that is really intentionally, as someone that believes in having these conversations and believes in doing the work to take the pressure off ourselves, to empower our own paths, to create our own blueprints. I struggle with this stuff too. And I struggled with it previously when I was single at 34. I struggled with it when at 37, I froze my eggs and didn't have my son till 40. So it comes up. And having had that journey, it is helping me this time around where I'm feeling that pressure again, where I'm feeling like I'm up against the clock at 43, trying to have another baby. But even though I've lived it, even though I know the value of taking the pressure off, the pressure still shows up. And then the question is, what do I do with that? And how do I work through that? Some of the things that I'm doing to mitigate the pressure is a lot of gratitude. And again, these are intentional practices, because if I'm being really honest, like, I'm stressed and I am anxious about the timeline. And not only the timeline, but just the desire to have the thing that I want. And I think that shows up a lot, right? Like, we might really want the partnership and we might really want the baby, and we desire these things so deeply. So it's not just about, honoring the timeline, but it's like, yeah, I get that. And things will show up when they're supposed to show up. But I also want this thing right now. I've wanted this thing for so long. And I think that can be really difficult to hold and to sit with, because, it's hard to stay patient for things you really, really want. I also think too, we live in such a society now that is like instant gratification. Like, there are a lot of things that we can have when we want them. We have access to so much stuff, information, ability to buy stuff, ability to like have it at our doorstep in minutes. So I think we're also in this culture of like instant gratification. And there's a lot of areas of our lives where patience does not have to apply, because we can get a lot of the things that we want ASAP. Like, I think about sort of this idea, and binging on Netflix. I remember when I was little, every Sunday night, my sister, my mom, and I would sit down and watch Murder, She Wrote. And then you have to wait an entire week for the next episode. And even as I grew older, there were shows I would think about, like Beverly Hills 90210. I love this. Or Melrose Place, where like you watch the episode and you had to wait an entire week for the next episode. And that was normalized, where now a season comes out and we can completely binge it. Or do you guys ever notice, like, I guess the Love is Blind does this. They like put out 6 episodes and then you're like, oh my God, I have to wait a week for the next 6. And like, we're not used to that waiting anymore. We're not used to sort of implementing the skill of patience, because a lot of things in our world we don't have to wait for anymore in the ways that we used to have to wait for them. So for me, being in the waiting, being in a place where I feel like the clock is ticking, being in the place where I greatly desire this thing, and this thing being a second baby and expanding my family, there's a lot of turmoil there, but there's a lot of choice there too. And I think the intentionality is important. For me, I have intentionally tried to slow down, because when I slow down, I can be more grounded in things that are going well, things that I can be grateful for, little moments of joy. When I'm moving too quickly through the day, it is all stress. It is all bad narratives. It is all, I should be doing this, or I don't have enough time to do this, or the stress and pressure is really, really heavy when I'm moving too quickly through my day. So what slowing down has looked like for me is getting outside for lunch, getting out from the computer and making a good meal and sitting outside in my backyard. And for those of you that live in the city where there is not much greenery, like, just get out for a walk and move slowly, right? So I'm intentional about how quickly I eat. I'm intentional about sitting down when I eat. And that's not easy, because while I'm doing that, it's almost like, training and rewiring my brain, because as I'm doing that, I'm thinking of all the things I have to do. And so now I have this choice. Do I like scarf down this meal real quick to get back to the tasks and the to-dos? Or do I take a beat? Do I slow down? Do I sit? Do I enjoy my meal? And again, these are intentional choices I'm trying to make. And that has helped me tremendously. Just getting outside. It's nicer out now. It's sunny, which always helps everybody's mood. sitting in my house in front of a computer when it's beautiful out also impacts my mood. So getting outside, slowing down, and eating a good meal has been helpful for me. The other thing I've been trying to do is I'm getting out for walks. I'm putting in my ear pods, putting on a podcast, and I'm going for at least a 30-minute walk. And again, it's an intentional choice to get out of the tasks of the day, to get out of the to-dos, and to just move. And, and it's everybody's like schedule dependent. I know a lot of us are back. Well, me, my office is my home, but a lot of us might be back in office. So sometimes that's not possible, but there's other ways to slow down. Like, I don't know if everybody saw the reel or my story where I talked about how quickly I was moving in Whole Foods and like I was making all these mistakes. Things were falling. Things were just like not cooperating. And then the checkout lady is watching me fumble all over everything. And I say, oh, nothing's working out this morning. She goes, no, you just need to slow down. So sometimes slowing down can just be a slower pace through your day, through your tasks, like moving with more ease instead of that like frenzied anxiety feeling or that rushed feeling, right? Like, and it would be it's interesting to think about just how you approach the day. And I just try to do things more slowly, even if it's the same task, even if it's like, try to do the dishes in between sessions. Like I'm just trying to do it at a slower pace. And I've found that really, really helpful. The other thing I'm doing is really working to prioritize things. I'm someone that really operates well when things are tidy, when things are organized, when things are in their place. But what I'm learning to do is recognize that sometimes that's not the priority. Sometimes the priority is the walk outside. Sometimes the priority is sitting down for lunch, and choosing and making the choice that those things are the priority over like folding the laundry and knowing that the laundry will get folded, it will get put away. But little choices to prioritize things to take care of my mental health, especially when I'm in a state of feeling the pressure on this strong desire for a second child. Because it's not easy to hold that. It's not easy to sit with that. It's not easy to be completely out of feeling like you are out of control in terms of when the outcome comes. And that's a huge emotional toll. So I find these other supportive, emotional, mental health things that I can do for myself really help me carry the weight of that a bit more. Another thing that I try to do is practice gratitude, whether that's just making like a mental note, whether that's journaling, really looking at all the things I have now instead of being focused on what I don't have, and being grateful for, having my son, being grateful for my business, being grateful for the opportunity to choose to slow down. I often can, especially when I am locked into a desired outcome, I can really overlook all the things that are going well, all the things I already have. And it's not helpful at all to overlook those things, because when I'm only focused on what I don't have, I'm now in this place of lack. I'm in this place of scarcity. I'm in this place of sadness. I'm in this place of longing. And it's very hard to be there. And so when I can shift, all of that is still there. But when I can create space and be more expansive in what I can feel in the same moment, and I make space for that gratitude and I make space for what's going well, it helps balance out the weight of what I don't have yet. And thinking about the value of gratitude is huge. And it's another exercise I prompt my clients to do, is to be mindful of gratitude. And what's interesting when I do this exercise myself, or I prompt clients to do this exercise, like it's hard to think about what we're grateful for, because I don't think it's a mindset that has traditionally been encouraged or talked about or awareness brought to it. So I think it's hard to train our brains to think about things that we're grateful for. And it can be anything. My clients would make lists and they say, well, I'm grateful I have, Wi-Fi. And they would think that was silly because it wasn't deep enough. And I think, anything you can be grateful for counts. There's no like something counts and something doesn't count. So I think that's a really great tool, supportive mindset to, again, probably have to consciously, intentionally wire your brain to be that way. And that's creating, that could help by creating a daily practice to do that, or every morning thinking about 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for, or in those moments where you are trying to slow down, bring awareness to what is going well right now. What about my day is good? And I often think that we don't think about those things enough, or even slow down enough to think about those things. And I think that's really, really important. So if you find yourself putting pressure on yourself about where you should be, where you aren't yet, I really encourage you to think about, well, where am I right now? And what's really great about where I am right now? And what could be the purpose of where I am right now? I have been really trying to stay grounded in what is the purpose of all this. When I look back at my life and what has worked out in the way that it has worked out, it does surprisingly all make sense. I've said this before. There was so much angst around being 37 and freezing my eggs, and being 38, 39, not a mother yet. And then having my son at 40, I'm like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. This was the way it was supposed to happen. This was the timing that was right for me. And it's hard to know that as you're going through it, but trusting that it will come to you in the time that it's meant to you is so helpful. It's hard, but I've been trying to stay grounded in that too. And I had an amazing call with one of my mentors, coaches, support systems. And we were talking through all of this stuff and talking through what I don't have yet and when is it coming and the timelines. I'm just as susceptible to all this stuff as everybody listening. And she said to me, well, when hasn't, what she said, how did she say it? Well, when hasn't it worked out? I'm going to say that again. Asking yourself, well, when hasn't it worked out? And that statement stopped me in my tracks. I started crying. Something about it resonated with me so hard that it was like a light bulb moment. Like, oh my God, Beth, like, why are you stressing? Like, things have worked out and worked out beautifully, have worked out like better than I can even imagine. And I just think about, meeting Rob at 34 and having Dean at 40, and just, where my business has grown to and the opportunities I have. And, I'm like, oh my God, it's all always worked out. Like, I have no evidence that it hasn't worked out. And again, it's worked out in ways that are more beautiful than I could even have imagined. And I hold that statement so closely to my heart now, because when I'm in those moments where the pressure is really heavy, the stress is really heavy, the uncertainty and the unknowns are so heavy, I just remind myself, where's the evidence that it hasn't worked out? And for sure, like, some things in my life have not worked out the way that I wanted, but the big, important things that matter to me have worked out in a way that I just couldn't even imagine. And I think back to, previous relationships and, where I might be if I was still in those, and obviously the devastation of those ending. But then it, opens up this new opportunity to meet Rob, who is just like, for me, my person, so happy. So it's just trusting that things will work out. And also looking back at evidence of like, where hasn't it worked out? Like, where do we have that evidence that tells us like the thing that we desire doesn't eventually come to us? And, I think you can go on Instagram and see so many stories of, and I love when people put these stories out, how like an ending led to a more beautiful beginning, and trusting that, what is meant for us will come to us. Sometimes that's hard to hold. Then I think that's why it's important to have other supportive tools, like I mentioned, to, help our emotional and mental health. And connection is another one I'm finding so important for myself. It can be really hard, especially someone that works remotely, mostly working from home. It can be really, really isolating. And I think from those places of isolation is when those bad narratives are louder, when it's not as easy to use our tools. So I've been finding getting out and connecting. And sometimes that might still mean by myself, but like it's out of my house. There is still like interaction with other people, which I love and enjoy. And then again, it's about connecting with the people that matter to you, being intentional about making plans, seeing your friends, seeing friends that light you up, that help you stay grounded in more, compassionate, kind narratives and ways of thinking. I have some amazing friends that help me stay grounded in gratitude and sort of help me see the big picture more realistically. I think sometimes as individuals, we are our worst critics. Our perspective on things is a bit blurred. And sometimes we need people who love us to show us more clearly the picture. I remember so clearly this was so many years ago, before I met Rob, I was training for the New York City Marathon. I forget where I was in my career. I might have still been in school. But anyways, I was doing a lot of things and there were a lot of accomplishments happening. But I remember feeling these same things like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing enough. Everybody else is doing all of these things. I'm so behind. And my friend at the time that I was training with said to me, she's like, hold on, Beth, what about this? You're doing that thing. You've done this thing. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. I never saw it that way. And so I think it's so helpful to have those friends in your life and those people in your life that will just like sort of check you and be like, well, let's just try to look at it a different way. And sometimes we need that because we can't see it ourselves. I feel like I'm rambling, but all this to say is that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and sometimes it is unnecessary pressure. And I think deciphering between narratives that are helpful and motivating versus narratives that are harmful is really important, because I think sometimes a little bit of pressure can be helpful and healthy. We just have to watch where it crosses over that line, where it becomes problematic and harmful, and it starts to perpetuate, the inner critic. That voice gets loud, these really unhelpful narratives about what we don't have, what we're not doing, what we should have that we don't have yet. And it's a really, really slippery slope if we're not mindful, if we're not bringing awareness to the things that we're saying to ourselves. I think there's a lot of value in identifying the things that you want and getting really clear on what you want. And most times, we don't get to decide the when. And I think it's about getting really clear on the things that you want and living a life that aligns with your values, living a life that is intentional, living a life that brings you joy and fulfillment while you live until these things come to you, because so many other things amazing things are probably happening. And that's really a good reminder for myself too, that there's so many amazing things going on, even though right now, my desire is to be pregnant. There's so many other amazing things going on. And I know, I trust, and I have evidence from previous life experience that when it does happen in the time that it happens, it's going to make so much sense. And the thing that I said earlier about like kind of asking ourselves these questions, like what is the purpose? I would think for myself, and I'll kind of walk through all the big important things in my life that I have desired and didn't come in the time that I thought they would, that created so much angst for me. So meeting Rob at 34, I think the purpose for that for me, and that's like not late in life, but if we're like talking about societal standards, like that is late in life. And it's so funny, I'm watching the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader documentary, which is like so problematic on so many levels. But these girls are like 24 years old, getting married and like, engaged. And one of the girls is actually, she's also 24. And she's like, I am behind in this game of life. And I'm like, oh my God, you're only 24. But, so meeting Rob at 34 by societal standards was like so late in the game. And again, caused me so much angst and like stress and self-judgment and probably external judgment about like, I always got the, why are you single? Which was a question that pissed me off so much because I'm like, I don't know. And I think I came to find out why. It was my own stuff and my own attachment style and things I had to work through. But for me, the purpose of meeting Rob at 34, and again, sometimes this stuff is hindsight, which is so, it just kind of sucks. It's hindsight. Because if we knew these things while we're going through it, we would be happier. We wouldn't be as sad, or I definitely wouldn't have been. But at 34, based on what I had been through, what I had learned through other relationships, what I had learned about myself, I was way, way, way more clear on what I wanted out of a partner and what I needed out of a partner and partnership and what kind of partner I wanted to be. Prior to meeting Rob, I just didn't feel like I could show up myself in these other relationships or situationships. And when I met Rob, I was so unapologetically myself and did not like try to play the cool girl or be anyone else but myself. And that's what worked. And I think that's what really attracted him to me. And I don't think I could have been there before 34. So for me, I think that was the purpose of meeting my partner later in life. The purpose of having my son at 40, again, hindsight, I got to do so much in my 30s. Rob and I got to do so much together before having Dean. Like we traveled everywhere. We got to live spontaneously. We just did so much before having him. And I got to build a business that I love, a career that I love, which, is not impossible with children, but your time is just different. And even bigger than that, I know that I'm a better mother for it. I am way more patient. I have the opportunity to have a different amount of time. I have the opportunity to have a different type of resources. So that was the purpose for me now I see of becoming a mother at 40. And again, it's hard to know these things while we're in it, while we're in the waiting, while we're in the desire. But I think when you're there asking yourself, what could be the purpose of this? And I think I shared this on my last solo episode. While the fertility journey has been really, really hard and really, really challenging, I have always stayed connected to there is a bigger purpose for this. And I think it allows me to relate to more women and, women that come on this podcast, women that reach out to me. It certainly allows me to be a louder voice, to advocate for lots more conversation, lots more information that I want to pay forward. I learned a lot, have learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot through my experience that I just want to continue to pay forward and help other women with. So I feel like there's a lot of purpose in that. And I don't know yet the purpose of the timeline for maybe baby number 2 or when that will even happen. But I know it will be purposeful. I know the timing will make sense whenever that timing is, and really working to let go of the pressure I'm putting on that. I was asked another really amazing question by another woman that I'm working with and who is supporting me through all of this was, and I put this in the newsletter that we sent out, but for anyone that didn't read that, I want to mention it here, which is to think about, how my biggest gifts in life, and my 2 biggest gifts in life are Rob and Dean. And she asked me to think about kind of where I was when those gifts came to me. And I was like, I was in a state of like happiness and joy and gratitude and full acceptance and even pride about where I was in my life. Before I met Rob, I really leaned into my being single, had leaned into my life, was really grateful for the life I built and everything that I had. And there was no pressure on meeting anybody. I was kind of like, all right, like maybe this is not meant for me, and that's okay. I'm going to choose to be happy. And then Rob came into my life. And same with having Dean. For Rob and I, there were hard conversations for years about children or timelines and getting on the same page. And we're kind of in a very difficult spot. And we worked through that, and we kind of just said, you know what, pressure off. Let's just see what happens. And 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. So again, it is not easy to take the pressure off, but so much can happen when you do. Not only will the things probably come to you, you'll just feel better. Like, I feel better when the pressure is off, when I can be in more gratitude, when I can slow down, when I can be in acceptance. You just feel better. And again, figuring out where that line is with that healthy amount of pressure. I think there's, timelines or deadlines, I should say, not timelines, deadlines create a little bit of pressure, but then the thing gets done. So really identifying the pressure that is unhelpful to you and working to take that pressure off and finding ways that are helpful for you to do that will be a game changer, will probably help things flow to you more easily. The things that you've desired will come to you, and you get to live lighter, you get to live happier. And I think the other thing which can be really hard and could help take the pressure off is attaching less to an outcome and more to the journey, right? And so the outcomes are unknown, the timelines are unknown, and often I think we attach to that outcome and we miss the whole journey part. I think there's so much beauty in the journey, whether it's messy, hard, challenging, exciting, adventurous. That's the stuff I think that really matters. So whatever you're putting pressure on now, maybe identifying the thing that you put the pressure on the most, and then asking yourself, what can I do to take some of this pressure off? And again, I've offered some things here that have been helpful to me. And I think it's a continuous work. I think it's daily choices. I think it's micro choices every day to just live in a state of acceptance and presence versus anxiety and angst and turmoil. So I hope this episode was helpful. I feel like I rambled for a very long time. But yeah, just essentially what are you putting pressure on? How can you take the pressure off? What is the purpose of this time in your life? What is the value of this time in your life? What are you learning? What are you learning to understand about yourself? Asking yourself those questions and shifting out of, I don't have this thing yet, to, I have all these amazing things right now. And this is all the things I'm learning. And this is, at this point in my life, this is the experiences I'm having. And here's what I'm taking away from these experiences. So if we really are intentional about how we think about things, it can shift and change so much. So I hope this, for all of you listening, that there's an opportunity to take some pressure off, to be more present, to be in more acceptance of where you are now, to love where you are now, and just enjoy your life a bit more. And these are reminders for me. This is as much an episode for me as it is for everybody else, because I'm working to do that myself. And I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. If you did, let me know. If there's other things that you want me to talk about, let me know. I kind of hopped on here not knowing exactly what I was going to talk about. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. And I do want to talk about relationship stuff. So maybe that'll be a next solo episode. But if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, topics I want to talk about, therapeutic topics you want me to talk about, I can go kind of more to therapist mode. Let me know. Shoot us an email at hello@quiettheclock.com. DM me, let me know, give me some feedback. Let me know what you want to hear. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Give us a review on Apple. We love and appreciate all the support, and I'll talk to everybody soon. If you're someone struggling or relating to the topics that we're talking about now, and you're feeling the anxiety or the stress or the pressure of feeling like you're running out of time, you're behind, and you want some extra support, check out my group therapy practice in Midtown Manhattan, NYC Therapeutic Wellness. We have an amazing team of clinicians ready to support you in your journey, to help you feel more grounded, to help you feel more grateful, to help you feel like you're just exactly where you need to be,
So check us out at www.nyctherapeuticwellness.com.